Capcom has tried and failed for over 3 decades to crawl out from the shadow of Street Fighter 2. So, how have they done this time around? Street Fighter 6 is a triumph. The combat is the best it's been since Third Strike, its new hip-hop inspired style is charming, and it has some of the most amount of content not just in Street Fighter history, but fighting game history as a whole. If this all sounds appealing to you, then congratulations, you probably already gave Capcom your money. But this game has more content in it than 5 Tekken games, so it's only fair to Street Fighter 6 to go through its 3 main modes one by one. First up, World Tour mode. The basic concept of World Tour is incredibly good. It's a single-player RPG where you make your own lovely character and fight enemies around a city with skill trees and the ability to learn the moves from other Street Fighter characters. And it's generally just a good way of not only learning how to play the game, but becoming invested in the world and characters of Street Fighter as a whole. But although the character interactions are overall stellar, the execution of the actual game part is just okay. The core gameplay loop is fun, but gets slightly repetitive after a while thanks to the AI either being dumber than a Wi-Fi Ken or reads your inputs like a dirty cheater. And despite there obviously being some effort put into the different enemy types that teach you aspects of the game, like the traffic cone things that only do lows or the drones that you have to anti-air, most of the enemies are basically just dudes with boxes on their heads or dudes wearing normal clothes, and I wish they expanded on it with more distinct enemy types. The pizza minigame that teaches you motion inputs is fun, but it's difficult to capitalize on those lessons when you're not using them in a real fight. Quests more like the basketball parrying work better as it's visually similar to how parrying actually works in the game. And I feel World Tour overall would do much better if it had a bigger variety of minigames or side quests in this regard. That's a good way to describe World Tour actually. It just needs more. Hopefully we see more in future DLC or the inevitable sequel that will come out in 7 years. Next up, Battle Hub. Replicating the classic arcade experience is something really hard to do in the modern day just over online. And to be honest, I'm not sure if Battle Hub was the way to do it. Having everyone's World Tour characters running around the virtual arcade does have its fun parts, but in the long term, I don't think it beats the convenience of queuing up in online matches that thankfully are still here with some of the best functionality in the genre's history. And that's saying a lot, because fighting game netcode used to stink more than Smash players and they really need a shower. The clan system they added is a good way of bringing back that old arcade experience, since player and scene rivalry has always been such a big part of fighting games. But I'm not sure if many people are going to be playing Battle Hub in a few months when the simple ranked or casual queue is so convenient. Maybe the silly avatars doing spinning bird kicks and the toxic totally honest Ryu player scrub quotes in chat will keep it alive, but for now, I'm not so sure. But otherwise, online mode very good, me like. And finally, we have Fighting Ground. This is the bread and butter of Street Fighter. The one-on-one versus mode, the training mode, the arcade mode, your typical fighting game mainstays are all here, and they are some of the best iterations of these probably ever. The new drive gauge is teeming with depth that hardcore players will grind for hours mastering, yet insanely simple for new players to use and understand. And the tutorials for the game systems and each character are super dense without being overwhelming. With all of this, there is no better time to get into Street Fighter than right now, and that's saying a lot, because fighting game tutorials used to stink more than Ken Masters, and he's homeless now, so he really needs a shower. Most of my fighting game experience comes from Smash Brothers, which I've put literal thousands of hours grinding, and ever since I've always wanted to get good at a traditional fighter, and this game has been the perfect place to start thanks to its tutorials and how surprisingly simple the game is. I got a Bronze 3 in Ranked by picking DJ and spamming heavy slash shot from across the screen, which honestly isn't very impressive. But considering I've never really grinded a traditional fighter before and only had 10 hours of World Tour behind me, I think that goes to show how inviting this game can be for new players if you're willing to spend some time learning how to play DJ in the least interesting way possible. A lot of people are going to get introduced to fighting games because of Street Fighter 6, and a lot of that has to do with all the ways it's reinvented itself mechanically and stylistically. But a lot of casual and hardcore Street Fighter fans alike have expressed their disappointment with the latter, either feeling the game's music is not as intense or as memorable as the classic tracks, or just not liking the hip-hop direction this game has taken, and all that's fine. You like classic Ryu, I like Giga Chad Hot Ryu, but I would argue that all this change to Street Fighter was necessary. Street Fighter has had stylistically similar looking entries for the past 15 years now, and Capcom has repeatedly expressed that they wanted to bring the series into the future and create the true next generation of Street Fighter with 6. You can't reinvent a series in the way Capcom Capcom wanted and keep every single piece of the old stuff at the same time. Some things will stay, others will go, but the mentality that made them create World Tour, Extreme Battle, and modern and dynamic controls to cater to casuals is the same mentality that made them create character themes that establishes an atmosphere rather than hype you up for a fight, an extremely cheesy character select theme about wanting to be the very best fighter there ever was, and giving the series a stylistic flair it hasn't had since 1999. All we could hope for was that the new style fit the series, and for a game literally called Street Fighter that was always a little bit cheesy, a street style that also fully leans into this cheese fits the game perfectly. And although some people aren't going to like that it's different, one thing you can't deny is that Street Fighter 6 didn't play it safe this time around. They took some of the biggest risks they ever have, and judging by the Steam player count on launch, I think it paid off pretty well. So yeah, I give Street Fighter 6 a 10 out of 10 and a thumbs up. It's probably my game of the year so far, but the new Zelda is pretty close, and if you want to be viewer of the year, you can like, comment and subscribe or join my wonderful patrons on Patreon, including my anonymous patron. Links in the description if you're interested. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go get destroyed by a Wi-Fi Kimberly again.